Okay, so just beside us all here is a grave that really marks the beginning of the 1916 Rising. Even though the events of this graveside took place just over 9 months before the first shots of the Rising were actually fired. It's a grave of a man called Jeremiah O'Donovan Rossa, a Fenian rebel. He was born in the year 1831 in a village called Rosscarbery in County Cork. As a young man, he founded a group called the Phoenix National and Literary Society. They paraded themselves as like a Republican book club, but they secretly called for an armed insurrection in the country. As a result of those activities, he spent most of his early life in jail. In the general prisoner amnesty that was offered, he got a choice from the government. He could go into voluntary exile somewhere else in the Anglosphere, so United States, Canada or Australia, or he could face the rest of his life in prison here. He chose exile and he moved to Staten Island in New York, and while he was there, his main goal was to engage the Irish American population into Irish politics. He saw it was a very wealthy, very powerful market to draw on. In little clubs across New York where he'd fundraise, talk about his ideas. He'd have overseen things like the Fenian Dynamite campaign, the Fenian invasion of Canada. He died on the 29th of June 1915 in New York, surrounded by his 17 children at age 83. However, before any proper kind of funeral rites took place, he briefly lay in St. Peter's Cemetery in Staten Island before a telegram came over from Dublin from a man called Thomas Clark, a future leader of the Rising. It said, "Bring him home immediately." In 1914, with the onset of the First World War, Parliament in Westminster had passed an act called the Defence of the Realm Act, which essentially banned any type of political gathering or demonstration in the country. However, you could still attend a funeral. Thomas Clark's idea was to stage a massive political propaganda funeral at this graveside to act as a harbinger and to gain support for the coming rebellion. So on the 1st of August 1915, from a crowd about 20,000 people at this graveside, right here, stepped forward a relatively quiet and unknown figure, a lawyer, school teacher and poet dressed in a band volunteer's uniform. It was Padraig Pearse, and he delivered probably the most important speech in modern Irish history. You'll hear his words now.
It has seemed right, before we turn away from this place where we have laid the mortal remains of O'Donovan Rossa, that one amongst us should, in the name of all, speak the praises of this valiant man, and endeavour to formulate the thoughts and the hopes that are in us as we stand around his grave. If there is anything that makes it fitting that I, rather than some other, rather than one of the grey-haired men who were young with him and who shared in his labours and in his sufferings, should speak, it is, perhaps, that I may be taken as speaking on behalf of a new generation who've been rebaptised in the Fenian faith and who have accepted the responsibility of carrying out the Fenian programme. I propose to you then that here, by the grave of this unrepentant Fenian, we renew our baptismal vows. Here, by the grave of this unconquered and unconquerable man, we ask God, each one for himself, such unshakable purpose, such high and gallant courage, such unbreakable strength of spirit as belonged to O'Donovan Rossa. Deliberately here we avow ourselves, as he avowed himself in the dock, Irishmen of one allegiance only. We of the Irish Volunteers and you others who are associated with us in today's task and duty are bound together and must henceforth stand together in brotherly union for the achievement of the freedom of Ireland. And we know only one definition of that freedom. It is Tone's definition. It is Mitchell's definition. It is Rossa's definition. Let no one blaspheme the cause served by the dead generations of Ireland by giving it any other name and definition than their name and their definition. We stand at Rossa's grave today not in sadness, but rather in exaltation of spirit, that it has been given to us, and we come thus into so close a communion with this brave and splendid Gael. Splendid and holy causes are served by men who are themselves splendid and holy. O'Donovan Rossa was splendid in the proud manhood of him, splendid in the heroic grace of him, splendid in the Gaelic strength and truth and clarity of him. And all that splendour and pride and strength was compatible with the humility and the simplicity of devotion to Ireland, to all that was olden and beautiful and Gaelic in Ireland. A holiness and a simplicity of patriotism of an Ono Growney or a Michael O'Cleary. The clear, true eyes of this man, who, almost alone in his day, visioned Ireland as we today would surely have it. Not free merely, but Gaelic as well. Not Gaelic merely, but free as well. And so in closer spiritual communion with him today than ever before, or perhaps ever again. And in close spiritual communion with those of his day, living and dead, who suffered with him in English prisons. And in a communion of spirit with our own dear comrades who suffer in English prisons today. And speaking on their behalf as well as our own, we here dedicate to Ireland our love and to English rule in Ireland our hate. This is a place of peace, a place sacred to the dead, where men should speak with all charity and all restraint. But I hold it to be a Christian thing, as O'Donovan Rossa held it, to hate evil, to hate untruth, and to hate oppression, and by hating them, to strive to overcome them. Our foes are wise and wary and strong, but wise, wary, and strong as they are, they cannot undo the miracles of God, who ripens in the hearts of young men, the seed sown by the young men of former generations, just as the seed sown by the men of 65 and 67 are coming to their miraculous ripenings today. Rulers and defenders of realms must needs be wary if they are to guard against these processes. For from death springs life, and from the graves of patriot men and women spring living nations. The defenders of this realm have worked well in secret and in the open. They think that they have pacified Ireland. They think that they have intimidated half of us and purchased the other half. They think that they have foreseen everything. They think that they have provided against everything. But the fools, the fools, the fools, they have left us our Fenian dead. And while Ireland holds these graves, Ireland, unfree, shall never be at peace.